Hello everybody, it's your pal Gracious E.V.A here. So this video is going to be a bit different from my normal speed paints. Last year, I created this OC for Mermay, and I've been playing around with this design and story for a bit. So I decided that for this video, it'll be a sort of speed paint / storytime narration. This video was meant to go up during May, but stuff happened and that ended up not happening. But you'll be seeing it now. So happy late Mermay, happy Pride Month now, and all that. A little bit of a warning. I will be doing a bit of voice acting at the very end of this little story thing, so just keep that in mind. I'm not a good voice actor by any means. I don't really do voice acting that much, but yeah, if you feel like it's a bit weird, just know that I know it is. And I only am doing voice acting because for some reason I thought dialogue fit there. I mean, it does fit there, so yeah. But yeah, again, this is going to be really different. None of what's going to be happening in the story is going to be appeared on screen, except for, the drawing that I am currently drawing on screen. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, sit back and enjoy the story. He didn't know where he was. Then again, he never did. Carlo never really belonged anywhere. Throughout his life, he was a fish out of water, if you will. Carlo was a part of an underwater race that kept themselves hidden from the surface. They had fish tails, ears, gills, and fins, and blue skin. But even among this strange species, Carlo was still different entirely. Carlo suffered from a disease with no cure. A disease affected both his body and mind. It spread through his blood and caused part of his skin to become discolored. He was like this for as long as he could remember, although that's not saying much. Currently, he was on a quest of sorts to figure everything out. He was sure that he would finally get the answers he needed, at least at first. But the longer he swam in the deep blue sea alongside the fish, he began to realize he wasn't sure where he was going. As he swam, he grew more and more tired, which happened quicker with him due to his illness. He eventually found a cave that he could rest. After entering the cave, he began to think of the past. He didn't like to do this, but it's not like he had anything else at the moment. He thought back to a time where things were simpler, but the thing was that he couldn't remember much of that time, and as time went on, he forgot more and more of it. But in truth, when he was younger, he was quite smart and a little sarcastic, much like now, although when he was much more livelier and healthier. He lived in a lake with his family. He would sometimes wish for greater seas to explore and live in, but he was overall content with his life. That was until it all changed. One day, he was pulled out of the water and dragged away from the lake. He had no idea what was going on, and he tried to get away, but the person who grabbed him ran away quickly and wouldn't let go of him. Then, out of nowhere, he heard a gunshot, and his kidnapper fell to the ground. He looked around frantically to see what happened and saw strange people in uniforms coming towards him. He tried to get away, but because of the sudden exposure to the surface air, he soon passed out, but not before hearing a few more gunshots in the distance. When he came to, he was wrapped in a blanket near a fire. The strange people were surrounding him, but not in a menacing way. One of them spoke to him, asking him questions, but Carlo was still dazed about everything that happened. He asked about his family, but the person didn't say anything. Carlo grew fearful, and before he could think, he stood up and started stumbling, running back towards the lake. The others tried calling towards him, but all he wanted to do was see his family. As he reached the lake, ready to jump back in, he saw a terrible color glistening on the lake. Red. He got there, and all he could see was red blood in the waters that was once his home. As what this meant sunk onto him, Carlo collapsed to the ground, tears flowing from his face. One of the people caught up with him and tried to bring him back to the camp. At first he wanted to fight, but knowing that there was nothing left for him, he went back with them. It turned out that these people were from the moon, and that the people of the moon and the people of his world were in a war. They then asked him to join their army. Carlo was still in shock about everything that happened, and wasn't sure about anything he was hearing. He said yes, without really knowing what he was getting himself into. A few years had passed. He was in a training facility, not actually located on the moon, where he was put through grueling work. What was worse was that his illness started to spread faster once he was on land. This caused him to pass out often, forget things, face constant fatigue, and lose his breath. Everyone around him mocked him for this, and he eventually accepted that no one liked him. His trainers would put him through constant punishments for his illness. All of this was what started his mental health to fall. One day, he was tasked to search for a file by one of the officers in a secluded area. As he was doing so, he stumbled upon a note. It looked like a page from a note log someone was keeping. In it described the events on what happened the night Kalo's family died. The soldiers were looking for a place to camp, and they had found a clearing in the woods. They sent someone to scout to make sure that there was no one there. However, the person they sent out was a traitor, and when they found out there were people, they tried to save them. They knew what would happen if they were caught, but it was too late. The soldiers killed Kalo's family just to make sure that no one would snitch on them if they stayed the night. Kalo had no idea how to feel about this. All he could do was sit and stare at the note. Later on, he got the courage to ask the officer who had brought him in about what happened. What he heard was exactly as he feared. It was true. Kalo's mind was spiraling into a shocked mess. He wanted to punch the person in front of him. No, he wanted to kill him. He wanted to run away, to go back before any of this happened. He wanted to cry, to scream. He wanted it all to end. But he couldn't do any of that. Just as the thoughts in his mind became too overwhelming to bear, he passed out. When he woke up, he was in a van being sent out to fight and to die. He had no idea what was going on, but from what he gathered, they were being sent out to wipe out a nearby village. They got there, and everyone was sent out into teams. The village was in a forest, and this was happening at night, so it was extremely hard to see anything far away. Kalo shuffled along with the rest, knowing that he would die tonight. His team was stationed to scout for any runaways, and just when it seemed like there would be no one of the soldiers came back, dragging one of the villagers on the ground. The villager was crying in fear, and Kalo couldn't take it anymore. He yelled at his officer to stop, but he didn't listen. So Kalo put himself between him and the villager. He figured he was going to die anyway, so he might as well at least try to save someone else. But the officer just pushed him away and was getting ready to kill the innocent villager. But then, one of the soldiers noticed that there were strange butterflies surrounding them. They were glowing and purple, and wouldn't fly away even as they tried to shoo them away. One of the butterflies landed on one of the soldiers, and in an instant, they were dead on the ground. Blood was spilling, and everyone started screaming. The villager ran away as the soldiers dropped one by one. As this was happening, Kalo saw a figure in the shadows, watching. Were they the one causing this? Before he could think, he started to run. As he was running, he could see and hear more butterflies killing more soldiers in the distance. It wasn't long before he felt fatigue rush through him, and he fell. He tried to keep going, but he just couldn't. The figure was looming over him now. His blurry vision kept him from seeing their face. He knew this was it. This was where he died. But in a way, he was sort of relieved. Maybe he wouldn't have to be in pain anymore. He closed his eyes, waiting for death, but it didn't come. Instead, he felt himself being picked up gently by the figure. They started walking with him in their arms. He didn't know what was going on. His blurry vision still couldn't see them clearly. But he could see that the figure had long purple hair, tan skin, and kind-looking eyes. The figure kept walking until they got to the sea. They gently placed Kalo into the water, and as he looked up at the surface, he saw the figure walk away. He couldn't really remember what happened after that. He figures he probably started drifting at sea, not knowing where he was going. At some point, he remembers a group of sea dwellers rescuing him and taking him in. They gave him new clothes and food and started asking questions. He tried to answer them, but he was still dazed and confused. It was then that he realized that he felt better physically. It was like the water had healed him, or at least slowed down the effects of his illness. However, he knew that mentally he would never be the same. He was taken in by the sea dweller people that rescued him, and he started living in the village that was home to the sea dwellers. Much time had passed since that day. Kalo had become a sort of melancholic man, smart but not really caring about much things. Occasionally, he would make a joke or sassy remark about something, but he mostly was never in the mood. He was also quite shy and didn't really like talking to people. There was always one thing on his mind, though, something that he never shared with anyone else. Despite his aloof nature, he was quite popular in the village. An odd tradition was coming up. It was the day of their festival, and at the festival there was a tradition where a random person would be chosen for something very special. They would get the chance to talk to the guardian. It was said that this guardian lived on the island next to the village, and has been for generations. The sea people figured them as a sort of god, and every year or so someone was chosen to go talk to this god for anything that they needed. And it just so happens that this year, Kalo was chosen. Everyone was excited for him as he accepted the opportunity to talk to the wise god. Kalo, though, was pretty nervous. He had figured this would happen and had a question for this god, but he wasn't sure how to word it. He swam up to the island alone, as is tradition, and peeped his head out of the water. At first he didn't see anyone, but then he saw someone walking up to the water and he hid. He didn't think he was this scared, but he eventually got the courage to look above the water to see him. The person he saw was unlike anything else he had seen. He had orange, fluffy hair tied into a messy ponytail. His hair shimmered like it was made of crystals in the sun, and his eyes had the same effect. He had pale skin that looked so smooth, like it was made of pearls. He appeared to be tending to some flowers. After Kalo was done admiring him, he spoke out in a quiet voice. This caught the being's attention. "Hello," he said in a soft voice. "You must be one of the sea folk. Is it that time of the year already?" He continued working on the flowers as he spoke. "So tell me, what is it that I can help you with?" Kalo had no idea what to say. Well, he said in a nervous tone, "I'm just not sure what to say. This is all new to me. I've never seen anyone like you before." "Well, everyone is unique in some way, and in that sense, I've never seen anyone like you. But that's a good thing," the stranger spoke. "Are you a god?" Kalo asked. "Does it matter if I am?" "I don't know," Kalo responded. "I don't really think so." "What's your name?" the stranger asked. "Kalo." "And tell me, Kalo, what's your story? I can tell you've got quite an interesting one to tell." Kalo tried his best to recall everything that happened, even though it was quite painful. But through the whole thing, the kind stranger listened intently and quietly. Once Kalo was done, he spoke. "So I was right. You've been through quite a lot, yet you're still here. That just shows how strong you are. I can also tell that you're quite tired after your long journey." "Yeah, I guess I am," Kalo responded. "Why don't we sit and talk for a bit? I always find that doing that cheers me up." Kalo went up closer to the shore and sat at the shallow end of it. The stranger sat next to him and they talked for quite a bit. Kalo found it was just as he said. Now he was around him, Kalo started to feel less tired and even a little better about himself. They talked until the sun started to set. "You know," Kalo finally said, "this has been really nice, but there is still something on my mind. It's been on my mind ever since the day I came back to the sea. I have no idea why I was saved by that being in the woods. I was sure I was going to be killed, but I wasn't. I just want to know the answer." "The answer to what?" the stranger asked. It was then that Kalo could finally say it. "The reason why I'm alive, and why I should stay alive." After he said that, the stranger paused, seemingly in thoughts, and Kalo waited for a response, though he wasn't sure what it would be. Finally, the stranger stood up and started looking around. He pointed towards one direction and said, "There." "Hmm?" said a confused Kalo. "If you go in that direction, you'll find the answer to your question." "Really?" He wasn't sure if that was the answer he was looking for. Are you sure I'll find something there? I'm sure of it. Kyle looked towards the direction before saying, alright. He was about to swim off, but he turned around to say, oh, thank you for all of this. The pleasure was mine, the stranger said back. Is it okay if I come back one day? The stranger looked down almost sadly before saying, if you have time to, and if you remember me. Kala was unsure what that meant, but he decided not to ask further. Again, thank you, he said before swimming off. Kala opened his eyes. He was still in the cave he had started resting in. When he opened his eyes, he could have sworn that he saw something strange in front of him. It looked almost like a butterfly, but when he went to touch it, it disappeared. It must have been the trick of the light. He swam out of the water before continuing his journey. It wasn't long before he realized that he was close to land. So there was something there, he thought to himself. He swam closer to the shore. He peeped his head out of the water to see anyone there. Sure enough, there were two people along the beach. He dipped his head back under the water and listened. They were talking, and it sounded like one of them had walked away, leaving the other alone. He looked up to see the other person by the water, probably looking out at sea. What he saw probably startled him more than it should. The person above him had long purple hair and tan skin. It couldn't be who he thought it was, could it? He wanted to have a closer look, but before he could, the person spotted him under the water. Kalo got scared, but knew that he shouldn't be. He worked up the courage to peep his head back above the water. Now he could see the person more clearly, and saw it. Their kind eyes, just like before. Hello there, the person said. Kalo didn't say anything, until finally he said one word. Hi? He had a feeling that he finally found what he was looking for. And there you go. This was the longest script I have ever written. Like I said, this was meant for mermay, but the reason why I couldn't get it out in time was just because this script took forever to write. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video and this drawing I made. Despite the fact that this took so long, I did have a fun time testing out my writing abilities and doing something different. I might do this again, but probably on a smaller scale, so let me know if you liked this. This drawing was actually made in Clip Studio Paint. Normally I use Many Bing Paint, but I've been trying out Clip Studio Paint, and I do quite enjoy it, actually. I do really like it. So yeah, expect more of my speed paint videos to be in Clip Studio Paint from now on. So yeah, and yeah, let me know if you like this video by doing all the normal stuff. Make sure to like and subscribe, all of that good stuff. This picture, as well as my other artworks, are on my socials linked below. I have 2 comics on my Webtoon, be sure to check those out, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!